What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making this a part of your day. However you're watching, however you're following the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for free, on the iHeartRadio app, or you're putting a face to the voice and you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show. Like, share, subscribe. Who knows? Maybe your friend, maybe your mother, maybe your father might even enjoy it. Your long-lost cousin. Everyone should be tuning in to the Ben Garcia Show. That's not what we're here to talk about today. A lot of things going on in the sports world, even more so today than yesterday. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has formally requested a trade. Now, my first reaction to this was very simply, this trade request probably was a couple of months ago, probably was a couple of weeks ago, and it just barely got leaked to the media now because the 49ers probably said, hey, give us some time, let's figure it out. And Brandon Aiyuk has officially hit DEFCON 1 and decided, yeah, we're going to leak this to the media, really hold the Niners' feet to the fire, and let's see what they do. Now, I don't believe the San Francisco 49ers will trade Brandon Aiyuk, and here's why. The San Francisco 49ers know for a fact this is their last real chance at winning a championship with this core group of players. Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan will be the head coach, but Kyle Shanahan as well with this core group of players. They know that this is their last opportunity to win a championship with this core of players. And if that's the case, they're not just going to ship off what ESPN coaches, scouts, and executives voted on as the 10th best wide receiver in the NFL. Arguably, I think he should be higher. Very talented wide receiver on the San Francisco 49ers. Absurd range of catching the football. Just a massive guy. Little, to some people, might not think Brandon Aiyuk is as big and as wide as he is, and the catching radius is insane. Dude's got pterodactyl arms. Brandon Aiyuk is a top wide receiver in the NFL. And you're not just going to ship him out if you know that this is your last year to win a championship. And here's why. If they ship Brandon Aiyuk out, whether 49ers fans want to admit it or not, whether I want to give Brock Purdy the respect he deserves or whatever it is 49ers fans like to throw out there for Brock Purdy and the he's disrespected thing. Brock Purdy, the quarterback, is fine. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's great. I think he's good. I think he's somewhere in the Kirk Cousins range of quarterbacks. If he loses Brandon Aiyuk, it is going to severely hurt the production of Brock Purdy. Because then you got to elevate a rookie up. You got to hope Juwan Jennings can replicate what he did last year. Deebo Samuel always misses a couple of games. Christian McCaffrey, you're always just holding on that he stays healthy with as much as the 49ers use him. And Trent Williams ain't getting any younger, and that offensive line isn't exactly elite. So if Brandon Aiyuk walks out that door, it significantly hurts not only Brock Purdy this year, but the San Francisco 49ers' chances of winning a Super Bowl. And the reason why they won't get rid of him is because they know this is their last core chance to win a Super Bowl. Think about it next year. Everyone is a year older. Trent Williams is a year older. You're praying Christian McCaffrey doesn't hit the running back wall that a lot of running backs tend to hit. Even Christian McCaffrey might not be exempt from that. Deebo Samuel plays bigger than he is. He's a guy that plays the hybrid role of running back, wide receiver, and sometimes playing car crash simulator the way they use him. And then Brandon Aiyuk, you got to pay him his money. But even more so than any of that, once Brock Purdy gets paid, and he's going to minimum get $45 million a year, probably more. But I like to think Brock Purdy is a team player. I think he's a good kid. I think he's a smart kid. And so therefore, I think Brock Purdy will likely take a little less, but he's going to get $45 million. And when they do that, not going to be able to keep George Kittle around. Likely not going to be able to keep both wide receivers around. And that is going to really hurt the San Francisco 49ers. Because I know what Brock Purdy is. He's a good quarterback that I wouldn't pay great money to. But you're going to have to pay great money to him because of his ability to be able to do that. So in my belief, I think Brock Purdy is a guy who's going to get severely hurt because of what he's done without some of these weapons. We saw last year, lost 3 straight games. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. When guys go down, he's not the same player. So the San Francisco 49ers know that if they lose Brandon Aiyuk, it could mark the end of their season before it begins. And that's a huge deal for Brandon Aiyuk to be able to stay on this team. And the San Francisco 49ers know it. Not only is it going to hurt the production of Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to hurt, not only is it going to hurt the production of Brock Purdy, it's going to hurt the team as well. So it's not just picking on Brock Purdy. It's not just picking on Brandon Aiyuk. This is a team that understands and knows that this is their last chance. And once they pay Brock Purdy, the whole wall is going to come crumbling down. Whether you think Brock Purdy is elite or not, he's not a guy that is going to carry you to a Super Bowl. That, I believe, is indisputable. Look at the quarterbacks who get paid top 5 money. They don't make it very far in the playoffs. And if Brock Purdy's that guy that's going to get paid top 5 money, without all those weapons, it's probably not going to work out for him. I'm asking 49ers fans to level with me here on this. Let's just say he's not a top 5 guy. Let's call him top 8. If he gets paid top flight money next year when he is ready to go for a contract, you're asking him to carry a team that doesn't have 4 All-Pros on it. Whether it's Kyle Juszczyk, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, whether it's Deebo Samuel, whether it's Brandon Aiyuk, Trent Williams, this offense is loaded. You're not going to be able to keep that all together when Brock Purdy gets paid next year, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you want to believe he's a top 3 guy or not. But Brock Purdy is the key to all of this next year. If he doesn't take less, it could be a huge issue. So Brandon Aiyuk isn't going to get traded by the San Francisco 49ers, and I don't believe they should trade him. Because with this core of players, you are trying to keep it together just one more year to try to win the Super Bowl. I believe you can win the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. I think you got to get a little lucky. I think other teams got to mess up a little bit. We saw that with the Lions last year. We saw that with the Packers last year. And the Green Bay Packers have to be able to and the San Francisco 49ers are going to have to be able to find an ability to probably beat the Kansas City Chiefs again. So this year alone is a very important year for Brandon Aiyuk and the San Francisco 49ers and their ability to compete this year. And because they know that their window is one more year with the contract of Brock Purdy looming, they know they have to make it count this year. And they'll potentially take a discount on what the trade demand would be for Brandon Aiyuk next year. Then just ship him away now and really dismantle their chances of winning a Super Bowl. So with the Brandon Aiyuk narrative, that's where I believe it lands. It's not that they don't want to pay him. It's not that they can't pay him. It's not that they want to trade him. And it's not even that they have to save up their pennies for Brock Purdy. They know with the Brock Purdy contract looming, they're not going to be able to keep the whole band back together. They're not going to bring everyone back, whether it's Kittle, whether it's Deebo Samuel. 2 of those guys are leaving. And if you think the 49ers are going to be as good without all those weapons and Brock Purdy leading the help, I can't help you. And Brandon Aiyuk demanding a contract now, it spews all sorts of issues for the San Francisco 49ers. And they're not going to trade him because they know that this year is the year to figure it all out. So as a Phoenix Suns guy, as a guy that covers sports here in Phoenix for Fox Sports 910 here in Phoenix, I've even got the shirt on for this edition of the Ben Garcia Show. I wouldn't do the show justice if I didn't talk about the Phoenix Suns and the Summer Suns. I'm ready to call the Phoenix Suns summer for how it's been. The Summer League, the draft, the free agency. I believe the Phoenix Suns have done everything they can to be the best team possible. I believe they've added the correct players. I believe they've added Miles Plumlee. All these things. Simultaneously, even with the additions of Mason Plumlee and Monte Morris and Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro in the draft and bringing back Josh Okogie, the Phoenix Suns did everything they can to get better this offseason. And they are unequivocally a better team. This is not debatable this year than they were last year. However, here's the catch. I still believe they have absolutely zero chance to compete for a championship next year. Other teams are just getting better. And I wanted to give the Suns a second as I continue to pull up their stats from last night's game. I wanted to give them a second to really come together and figure out exactly what they want to be. I wanted to give it a shot. Truly, I wanted to give the Suns a shot. But with the finished product, which is basically what it is now, the finished product with, aside from maybe adding a Gordon Hayward, the Suns did better than I thought they were going to do. Mason Plumlee, I believe Monte Morris can add a strong point guard back up to this role and orchestrate an offense a little bit better so it's not crazy. The hodgepodge that it was, Mike Budenholzer, I believe, can be a much better offensive coach than about 3/4 of the NBA. But with all that being said, after seeing the fact that Ryan Dunn is a light years away from being able to shoot the basketball. Now, I've always said the Suns have needed a taller Josh Okogie, a bigger, taller Josh Okogie. Yes, and his job on the floor isn't to score buckets. But Ryan Dunn's ability to at least create some offensive threat so that teams don't just leave him open, that's a real issue for the Suns now. He has no ability right now to become a legitimate offensive weapon. We saw with Josh Okogie, anytime he's in the lineup, teams just sag off him. They'll double whichever one of the big three, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, have the ball. Ryan Dunn, who I had high expectations for, can still be an elite-level defensive player and maybe develop a corner three that Josh Okogie could never develop within a couple years. I'm pulling the plug. The championship or bust aspirations for the Phoenix Suns, it's just tough. And you go back and you look at all of the things that the Suns did to get to this point, whether it was trading for Bradley Beal, whether it was trading for Kevin Durant. I love Kevin Durant on the Suns. He's a fun guy to have. I'm just being honest here. Bradley Beal was my favorite player in the NBA who wasn't on the Phoenix Suns last year. And their ability to be able to win together is a real issue. That is a real issue for the Phoenix Suns. I just don't see them being able to leapfrog some of the teams like the Dallas Mavericks, like the Denver Nuggets. The Los Angeles Lakers are probably still better than the Phoenix Suns with their core group of guys. Teams like the Boston Celtics, we know, are in the Eastern Conference. The Memphis Grizzlies are coming back next year better than ever. The Orlando Magic added some players. The Suns are dealing with some key issues that I believe are not fixable. And at this point, I know it's late in the summer. I know it's July. It might be time to just hit the eject button. Because Phoenix Suns fans and Phoenix Suns supporters alike and people outside watching the Phoenix Suns, they're in a bad spot. You are hoping for Oso Ighodaro, a second-round guy in which second-round picks don't normally make the contributions that you need them to have in the NBA Finals or on a run to the NBA Finals. You're asking for him to be a legitimate backup two on this team and the ability to be able to add quality minutes to this Phoenix Suns roster. And I just believe that that's not possible. And then you have the Ryan Dunn aspect of things. You're asking him to come in as a prime defensive player, a guy who has not developed really anything of an offensive threat while being with the Phoenix Suns, to come in and be a legitimate offensive threat, and to come in and legitimately contribute to a team that had some offensive woes outside of the big three and at times needed someone to stretch the floor. Now you're asking Grayson Allen to basically replicate what he did last year, which was insane. It was 44% from the field, I believe, Grayson Allen shooting from three. Asking Grayson Allen to replicate an insane three-point season, asking Ryan Dunn to come in and be the lockdown defender and add an offensive threat, asking Oso Ighodaro, the 44th something pick in the draft, 40-something other guys picked before him, to come in and be a legitimate backup five, and play some legitimate small ball and be an elite level role player on the Phoenix Suns in a chance to win a championship. And even if all those things happened, even if all those things, the stars became aligned, it would still be really, really tough for the Phoenix Suns to be able to add that, for the Phoenix Suns to be able to put all those things in a pot and for it to work out and to then win a championship. Even if all that stuff, the Memphis Grizzlies potentially are better, the Minnesota Timberwolves are just better, the Denver Nuggets are just better, the Lakers right now currently constructed might be better, the Sacramento Kings might be better, the Dallas Mavericks are better. The Suns need to hit the eject button here. And this isn't me ragging on the Suns. I just want them, as a fan and as an objective viewer of the Phoenix Suns to get better in other ways. Meaning, the Phoenix Suns have to hit the eject button on this Kevin Durant thing. They have to hit the eject button where they can. Because if they don't, if they go throughout this process next year and they don't win a championship, Kevin Durant's trade value might be nothing. Bradley Beal's trade value is already nothing. So what does that lead you to do? Keep rolling these guys out in an attempt to win a championship, be a second apron team, have your picks frozen because the punitive complications of being in a second apron, being that team does to you? You want to keep rolling that out? Or do you want to fix the problem? And I love what the Suns have done this year. They've added as much as they could. They've really, in my opinion, B+ on the offseason. If you were expecting them to do more, you just weren't paying attention to the Suns. There were just better opportunities everywhere else. I'm not in the business of being a deranged, insane, hallucinating Suns fan that doesn't understand that this team can't win a championship. I'm in the business of how can we get this fixed and on the road as fast as we can. And to me, the only way of that is ejecting Kevin Durant from this fold. Getting back all the assets you can for Kevin Durant. Field a competitive team next year with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker with some players around him and stay competitive. Get those picks. Get those other players. See what you can flip Grayson Allen into later on in the trade deadline. But this team as currently constructed, even if everything worked out and it doesn't look like through a couple of games into the Summer League, Oso Ighodaro or Ryan Dunn are really going to be key contributing elite role players on the Phoenix Suns. And asking them to do it already was already a stretch. But now a team that needs that to happen, even if it did, I still have my doubts of this team winning a championship. And if this Suns team isn't winning a championship, I'm not so sure what we're doing. I think the Phoenix Suns need to seriously analyze where they are, possibly hit the eject button on Kevin Durant, see what you can get for Grayson Allen, reconfigure this roster, add some assets so when this team is really ready to compete, they have the assets to do so. Doing anything else at this time is just delusion to think they're a championship contender or praying that everything comes together. It's better to be proactive than reactive. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Phoenix Suns. You know, when I was coming up with this idea on the show, it was earlier in the USA basketball Serbia men's game when Serbia was leading the USA basketball by a few points here. Now, as I'm currently watching the game, it is 81-57 and USA has really hit their stride. Here's what I will say. I'm not worried that the USA won't win gold. I'm not actually fearful that this team isn't going to be labeled the best team in the world. That's what they should do. That's what they have to do. That's what the standard of American basketball is. Serbia might have the best player in the world. Who knows? Maybe Slovenia has the best player in the world. We know you can field a top 5 list of the best players in the NBA. 4 of them are probably foreign. But the United States still kicks the bleep out of everyone else. But here's what I will say. The brand of basketball around the world has never been better. I just mentioned. Make a list of the top 5 players in the NBA. 4 of them are probably from a different country, not named the USA. As well as our men's basketball team has been indulged in the super team era. And we have seen super teams don't really work. Sometimes they have trouble aligning with each other. So when you add the complexion of it's a tough dynamic of a group to come together, meaning building a super team is just tough, although all the other USA basketball teams are super teams. Everywhere else in the world is getting better. And with the expectation to win gold, what happens if the USA, the impossible happens and they collapse? What happens if USA basketball doesn't win the gold? That's what I want to focus on. You know, I mentioned this the other day on a radio show that I'm on. If the USA doesn't win the gold, and this is a serious conversation you have to have, because of how good the world has become at basketball, thus still not nearly as good as we are. If they don't win gold, if they slip up, if right now they're destroying Serbia and they're really catching their footing and this segment means nothing, and it might mean, and it probably will mean nothing. They're catching their footing and they just roll through everyone else. If the USA doesn't win the gold medal, what does that do to the legacies of one LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant? If Steph Curry doesn't win the gold medal, it's his first time on the Olympics, you'll have people saying 30 years from now, well, that Steph Curry was awesome, but what did he do without Kevin Durant? Won a title, but this is what the arguments will be. What did he need after blowing a 3-1 lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers? Kevin Durant went to go get Big Brother. And the first time he steps on the Olympic court, he didn't work well with others. The best three-point shooter of all time? That could hurt his legacy. Kevin Durant, even more so. Steph Curry's probably the least out of all of them. But these are the big three of my era of basketball. If the USA doesn't win gold, for Kevin Durant, it's, real shocker. The guy that blew up 2 teams, blew a 3-1 lead in Oklahoma City, and doesn't work well with other star players, didn't win the gold. That's kind of on brand for Kevin Durant, although he's already won 1, but he was by far the best player on the team at that time. That was probably the worst version of the USA Olympic team that we had in years. Not the FIBA teams, the Olympic teams. And then lastly, what does it do for LeBron James if the USA doesn't win gold? I already believe LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time. I think stats show it. I think LeBron James as a whole, his being able to go from any team and winning championships. Michael Jordan never did that. Granted, Michael Jordan never really had to. But regardless, let's just say that the argument's 50-50. Let's even say it's 55-45 Jordan. That's not the reason. But you have some reasons why you could say why you could say LeBron James isn't the best basketball player ever. Say he doesn't have a lot of championships, doesn't have more championships than Jordan, lost more championships than he won, can kind of be seen as a wanderer, at times a little moody, a little selfish, takes over teams. Jordan didn't necessarily do that. But then you can add another thing to the fold. LeBron James didn't win a gold medal. He won obviously before, but he was on the USA team in which he is still leading, didn't win a gold medal. What does that do for the USA? What does that do for LeBron James's legacy? Does it affect the GOAT conversations? When people talk about Michael Jordan, LeBron James, do they bring up but he was on that Olympic team that severely disappointed? You can compound that with the 2011 Mavericks loss in the NBA Finals. And then with Kevin Durant, you can add the wanderer, doesn't work well with star players. Kevin Durant blew up a couple of teams. Of course, he blew up USA's Olympic roster. Steph Curry, a guy that has never been given the credit that he deserves. You could say, well, again, he was on that team as well. What does it do for the era as a whole? The big three, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James, the 2010s through 2020s, iconic faces of basketball. What does it do? What does it say about that era of basketball? What does it say? Well, how good were they? They couldn't beat the rest of the world like the 92 Dream Team did, like the 2012 team did, like the 2008 team did. I'm not saying at all that I'm worried about them winning the Olympic gold medal, but it is an interesting conversation. What does it do to the legacies of LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry, who are leading this Olympic team to a potential gold medal? In this USA Olympics, they have nothing to gain and some things to lose because they're expected to win the gold medal, and they should win the gold medal, and I believe they will win the gold medal. But if they don't, it could potentially stain the legacy of those three players at least a little bit, potentially on the whole era of 2010s, 2020s basketball. So it's tough to be a Super Bowl or bust team Always. It's tough to be a championship or bust team. Always. I hate watch USA basketball because I expect them to win, and if they're not, I'm frustrated, which is exactly where I should be because this team is amazing, and they will win the gold medal, and they should win the gold medal. But heaviest is the head that wears the crown. If they don't accomplish the gold medal, after a very disappointing FIBA in which the USA, I believe, came in 7th place, it could be a stain on the careers of Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and LeBron James. Thanks so much for making me a part of your day. Thanks for tuning into the Ben Garcia Show. However you're watching, however you're following, Spotify, Apple Podcasts are free on the iHeartRadio app. You're watching on YouTube. You're putting a face to the voice on there. You're subscribing. You're liking. You're sharing. You're telling a friend. I appreciate it. However you're tuning in to the Ben Garcia Show. 3 shows in the past few days. We are killing it on all things social as well. YouTube, I appreciate you making us a part of your day. And until the next Ben Garcia Show, I'm Benjamin Garcia, and it's been the Ben Garcia Show.